I didn't hear thunder. There was no dramatic light, no warning, just silence. A silence so deep it felt like the universe had stopped breathing. One moment I was standing in the hallway of my house. The next, I felt a stabbing pain pierce through my chest and crawl up my back like a blade of ice. I tried to call my wife's name, but my voice broke into air. The floor tilted beneath me, the walls stretched away, and suddenly everything lost weight. That was my last heartbeat. They told me later it was cardiac arrest, clinical death for several minutes. But what I remember is different. I remember the stillness. I wasn't falling. I was being unplugged. I could see my body on the ground, my wife's tears mixing with the light from the window, the red flashing of the paramedics outside. But none of it reached me. I was in a place where sound didn't travel and time didn't matter. It wasn't darkness. It was absence. An ocean of quiet awareness where I could feel everything and yet feel nothing. And then I was pulled, not upward, not downward, inward, through something like a veil of light. It wasn't the light of a lamp. It was alive. I don't know how to describe it except to say the light knew me. Every detail, every failure, every hidden thought, nothing could hide there. But instead of shame, I felt clarity. It wasn't judgment. It was truth. And truth in that place didn't punish. It simply was. Then the visions began. I saw my life, not as a movie, but as if every moment played at once. My impatience, my broken promises, the countless times I said, "I'll do it later," the phone calls I postponed, the prayers I delayed, the people I loved but never truly listened to. Every later I ever spoke hung around me like uncashed checks. I tried to speak, to explain, but words didn't exist there. Only knowing, only being. Then came a presence, stronger than the light itself. It didn't announce itself, but everything inside me knew who it was. I can't describe his face because he didn't need one. His presence was identity. It was like hearing music that you've known all your life but had forgotten until that instant. My soul recognized him before my thoughts could. I knew. I was standing at the edge of eternity. And in that edge, there was no time, but there was a choice. I could feel it forming, like a question pressed into my spirit. What will you do with what you've been given? Then the silence broke. The presence spoke, not through air or sound, but through the very center of me. Every atom trembled under the weight of that voice. It wasn't thunder, it wasn't whisper. It was truth given shape. And what I heard would follow me back across every heartbeat I was about to reclaim.
The voice didn't come from above me. It came through me, like my very being had become the instrument of its sound. Every syllable carried a gravity that bent everything around it. Tell them it's almost midnight. I froze. The words felt alive. They weren't poetic. They were a command carved into eternity itself. And somehow I knew what it meant. It wasn't a time on a clock. It was a countdown of mercy. Almost midnight meant the edge of grace, the moment before the final door closes, when the invitation still stands, but the world no longer listens. The light around me shifted. Suddenly, I saw things. Not visions made of fantasy, but realities stripped of disguise. I saw cities glittering with distraction, people staring at glowing screens while their souls starved. I saw churches filled with noise but emptied of presence. Sermons rehearsed, hearts asleep. I saw believers chasing blessings while the blesser waited in silence. Families eating together without looking at one another. Prayers said without meaning. Love spoken without cost. Every scene was both foreign and familiar, like I was watching humanity through the eyes of heaven. Then the voice spoke again. My people are busy, but not awake. The words sliced through me. I wanted to cry, but tears in that place weren't like earthly tears. They carried weight. They meant understanding. I saw myself among them, the man who believed but postponed surrender, the man who said tomorrow to God while rushing through today. I was one of the distracted, one of the sleeping. The light intensified until it felt like truth itself was breathing against my face. Tell them, the voice said again, that the lamps are running out of oil. Tell them I am near, yet they do not look. My patience is long, but their time is short. Those words weren't threat. They were heartbreak. They carried the tone of a father whose children had wandered too far. Every letter pulsed with both grief and love. And within me rose the unbearable realization that this message wasn't given to keep. It was given to deliver. I wanted to argue, to ask, why me? Who would believe this? But before the question even formed, peace answered it. Speak. I will take care of who listens. Then came images. Two roads diverging before me. One led back to my comfortable life, filled with routine, small ambitions, and promises I'd keep someday. The other led into surrender, into the risk of obedience. I understood that returning to life would cost me my silence. If I went back, I'd have to speak. The light grew unbearable, as if the horizon itself were folding into a single blinding point. The voice spoke once more, slower this time, sealing the words deep into my soul. Tell them it's almost midnight. And just as the last echo faded, I felt a force behind me, like wind and gravity combined, pulling me backward through the veil. The light dissolved, the silence shattered, and the world of heartbeat and pain came rushing back.
The first thing I felt was weight. The weight of flesh, gravity, air pressing down on lungs that suddenly remembered how to breathe. Then came sound, sterile, mechanical, fragile. The rhythmic beep of monitors, the hum of machines, hurried footsteps, a distant voice saying, "He's back." I opened my eyes and met the cold glow of fluorescent lights. The ceiling looked endless, like a lid between heaven and earth. My chest burned, my throat ached, and every inch of me screamed alive. A tube was taped to my arm, a mask covered my mouth, and for a moment I thought I had fallen into another dream. Then I saw her, my wife, sitting at the edge of the bed, hands trembling, tears spilling down her cheeks. When our eyes met, she whispered through sobs, "You died. You were gone." And I wanted to tell her, no, I wasn't gone. I was somewhere far more real than here. I tried to speak, but only air escaped, like a whisper lost between worlds. I pressed her hand and mouthed, "I heard him." She didn't understand the words, but she felt their weight. She leaned closer, forehead against mine, both of us shaking in silence that said more than language ever could. Over the next few days, doctors came and went with explanations: cardiac arrest, electrical activity, resuscitation time, oxygen deprivation. They used words that made sense on paper, but not in eternity. Each time they spoke, I nodded, but inside I knew none of those terms could explain the voice that had torn me open and rebuilt me. Science had restarted my heart, but something else had restarted me. I didn't tell anyone the message right away. It didn't feel like information. It felt like a burden, and burdens aren't meant to be unloaded carelessly. I could still feel the echo of those words vibrating in my chest. Tell them it's almost midnight. Every time the clock beeped in the hospital room, I felt it, the prophecy hidden in the rhythm of seconds. When I finally had strength to stand, I walked to the mirror in the bathroom. The man staring back at me looked the same, but wasn't. His eyes carried the weight of something eternal. He had been to the threshold and returned branded with light. There was a strange ache under my ribs, not pain, but remembrance. A holy wound that didn't hurt, but reminded me I had been touched by something beyond understanding. That wound became my anchor. I didn't need proof. I was the proof. And with every breath, I felt the urgency rise inside me like a tide that couldn't be contained. I didn't come back to live comfortably. I came back to warn. That night, as the hospital dimmed and monitors whispered their artificial lullaby, I closed my eyes and prayed, "If you gave me back this life, teach me how to use it." And somewhere in the silence, like a wind brushing past my ear, I heard again, "Then speak."
Days passed. My body recovered, but my spirit didn't rest. I couldn't shake the sound of that voice. It wasn't just memory, it was command. The world around me felt louder now, filled with trivial noise that drowned out what truly mattered. Every conversation, every commercial, every scrolling screen looked like a distraction designed to keep souls asleep. I realized that most people weren't rejecting God. They were simply too busy to notice He was still calling. The doctor said I was lucky. My wife said it was a miracle. But I knew better. It wasn't luck or miracle, it was mercy. Mercy that gave me back time so I could spend it differently. At first, I didn't know how to speak about what I'd seen. Who would believe me? A man clinically dead for minutes, claiming to hear Jesus speak. The logical world has no vocabulary for encounters like this. But one night, as I lay awake listening to the machines breathe beside me, I understood. I wasn't called to convince anyone. I was called to testify. So I began, not from a pulpit, not with grandeur, just with truth. I started with the people closest to me, my wife, my son, a few friends. I told them what I'd seen and heard. Some wept, some smiled politely, unsure what to make of it. Others turned away, uncomfortable with the idea that time might actually be running out. But I spoke anyway, because the message wasn't mine to keep. Tell them it's almost midnight. Those words became the compass of my days. I wrote them in a notebook. I whispered them during prayer. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night and hear the machines breathe beside me in rhythm with the phrase. Every second that passed felt like a footstep closer to a divine hour I could sense but not see. Almost midnight didn't mean fear. It meant final call. It meant the door of mercy was still open, but the handle was turning. It meant love was still waiting, but patience was thinning. It meant we still have time, but not forever. I started to see midnight everywhere, in the faces of strangers,
in the headlines dripping with cruelty, in the quiet emptiness of people chasing everything but peace. The world doesn't realize that heaven's clock doesn't run like ours. Every beat of every heart is one tick closer to that hour when grace becomes glory and choices become consequences. So now, when I speak, I don't try to sound holy, I sound urgent. I tell people what I know, that life is fragile, eternity is real, and love is running out of time to be expressed. I tell them not to wait for tragedy to start listening, because I've been there, on the edge where time stops and truth begins. And I still hear it, as clear as the moment I left. Tell them it's almost midnight. So here I am, telling you, because the next heartbeat is never guaranteed, and the clock is still ticking.
Maybe this story didn't reach you by coincidence. Maybe God used this message as a quiet reminder that time is moving and eternity is drawing near. Every breath you take is a gift. Every sunrise is another chance to forgive, to begin again, to come back to Him. Life is short, but God's love is endless. And as long as there's time, there is hope. Before you go, take a moment. Close your eyes. Ask yourself, what if it's almost midnight for me too? The answer isn't fear, it's awakening. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel Echoes of Eternity. Leave a like and tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Every story, every soul, every heartbeat echoes into eternity.